Okay, we are back for the second part of the air conditioning segment that I made earlier on this particular car, 1992 Toyota Camry 3.0 V6, converting it from the old R-12 Freon to the R-134A Freon. If you are considering doing this, just consider this just kind of a few tidbits for you, and do a lot of research, find out all you can about the conversion process. As with any repair, be safe, follow industry standard safety procedures, always be aware of fire hazards. Freon can cause damage to your skin, your eyes. You want to wear safety goggles and gloves, and be aware of all normal safety procedures. And real quickly, the last time we saw a video on this a few hours ago when I recorded it, we had the gauges hooked up and showed you a few things about the ports and whatnot. I want to show you real quick the kit that I used was this one here, if I can get the lighting right. I bought it at AutoZone, known by two names. If you were to go online and to search, do like a Google search for E as in Edward, F as in Frank, and then space products. So that's EF products. They have a website you can click on, and this is known as a Quest. I guess it's QUEST retrofit kit. This is what I used, but I did a lot of research first. And real quickly, it's turned out well. It's working fine. I had a couple of problems I want to point out, but first of all, I want to show you on the low side service port here, way down in there. Lighting isn't good. It's in the evening now. See if I can zoom in here. That has been upgraded. That's an adapter that screws onto the original R-12 port. It actually has thread lock inside of it, so once you screw it on, 10 minutes later it becomes permanent. If you try to take that off, it will damage that line permanently, and you'll have to replace the entire line at that point, which, as chance would happen, I ran across an issue. Let me grab my light here. Hold on a second. Okay, on the high side, with the gauges installed, you want to be able to read the gauges and whatnot. Well, this is my high side area, and underneath this mess, this red handle there, is my high side port. What happened with this particular car is I got it all charged up. Everything was working great. Pressures were good. Went to disconnect, and this valve here, what's known as a Schrader valve, was spewing. It was leaking, and I could not get it to stop leaking. I put the plastic cover on it, and it blew it off. So at this point, I've kind of punted, so to speak. I've actually left my service adapter on there from my gauge set, and then the little silver cap there is one that I just happen to have, and I've capped it off. So I have no choice at this point but to just leave that on there. Let's hope that it seals well. The knob, like we talked about before, has the ability to shut the valve down. So I'm going to just leave that on there and purchase another service adapter from my gauge kit. So it's turned out well. One other item here is when you do service a system like this, and if you retrofit it, any future technician is going to need to know. So what I've done is we've added a sticker here that says it's kind of a notice that this AC system has been adapted to a different freon, the date, the type of freon, type of oil, and this particular oil was pre-mixed with the freon, and I can tell you I got enough all over myself to know that it's very slippery, foamy, slimy, and very cold if you spew it enough. I went ahead and put on here OEM. Where is it? Right here. OEM figures are 35 ounces of R-12 and 7.7 ounces of mineral oil. But this is a different freon. It takes 134A, R-134A, and PAG oil, but it's included in the retrofit kit as pre-mixed. So if anybody were to buy this car, if we were to sell this car, they hopefully would be able to see that sticker and take it from there if they need to service the AC system. At this point, it's actually running very well. I'm going to hop inside here real quick, show you what it's doing. Let me start it up. Wait till the dinger goes out. There we go. I have a thermometer in here. The air conditioning is on right here. I have it on inside recirculating air to the front vent. And if you look very closely here at the thermometer, this is just a stick thermometer that you can buy at the auto parts store. Looks a lot like a thermometer you find in your kitchen. That is where it's pointing right now is the 40-degree mark, and there's a little green area in this particular one. And this thing very quickly is cooling down to less than 40 degrees, which is really, really cold. I can hear the compressor cycling on and off, which it should do. My concern at this point is that if it gets too low, if the temperature gets too low in here, a couple of things, it could create kind of a freezing situation up inside the, I believe it's the evaporator, which is inside the car down there by the floorboard. And also, if you have a situation where it's running extremely cold, you could have, I believe, if memory serves, you could have a blockage in the system. Took this thing on a test drive, and it really doesn't get much below about 38. With ram air over the condenser in the front by the radiator, it's going to change a little bit. You're going to get a little different temperature readings. And also the ambient temperature. If I were to take this car down to Phoenix in the mid-summer months, when it's like 115 degrees, it'll perform differently. It'll have a little harder time getting that cold in here. It's cool this evening. It's only about, I'd say 70, 65 degrees outside. So we're getting nice cold air tonight. We're getting ready to go on a trip, so I most likely will actually be a car geek and take this thermometer with me and stick it in the vent here and just keep an eye on the temperature and see if it goes way too low. We're going to be going through Blythe, California. Estimated temperature about the time we're going to go through there, if in the afternoon, will be 101 degrees ambient temperature outside, ram air over the condenser up front. So you can see it's rising there a little bit. So it really is in spec. If that was going way down, I'd be real concerned. Also, my pressure readings in the front, on the low side particularly, as I recall, if they get to be really low, you could have a situation where it's blockage or creating a freezing temperature up underneath where the evaporator is. So anyway, this is working great. It used to be an R-12 system. I can tell you that it's blowing cold enough to it makes me cold. So so far so good. I can hear the compressor kicking in and out there. With any old car that you have not owned before, you run the risk of a bad compressor or a bad clutch. Let me turn this off real quick. Hop out. Let me elaborate on that just for a minute. If you have a car that you're going to convert and you have not owned the car before, I would never assume, like I did not with this one, that the compressor and the clutch are good. It could very well be that the clutch was out or something like that. So it's going to be a risk if you want to convert a car from R-12 to 134A, especially if you have not owned the car before and you buy a used car with an older system that's not working. You run a risk of something being bad. So the downfall, at least in my experience with air conditioning, and that's certainly not my forte, it's one of my weaker areas. One of the big downfalls is that a lot of times you have to actually spend the money to buy the product, buy the tools, charge the system up, and see if it leaks. And at that point you have to use dyes and some other things to tell you where the leak is. So air conditioning, depending on your skill level, your patience level, can be real risky. So if you're not super comfortable with working on it, I suggest you have a shop do it, but of course you're going to be paying them a fair amount of money, market value for sure, especially in this part of the country to do this. So in this case, we'll road trip it hopefully in a few days, and I'll get back on my YouTube and post a follow-up. Thanks for watching.